What's going on, everybody? Jolt here from the Token Minorities, and we are here with the Week 1 battle of NPL Season 4, and I'm really excited for this season, especially because I feel like this is the best draft I've had in my time here in the NPL. So, before we begin, if you haven't seen my draft analysis video, I highly encourage you to do that now, so that you have a better idea of what my mons are on my roster, and so that you kind of have an idea of why I drafted what I did. But just in case you didn't see it, I will leave it as a link in the description below, and also my team is right here, the Toronto Star Raptors, just like always, and I am rocking Megalodios this season instead of Mega Venusaur, so definitely check that out if you haven't yet. But this week I am playing against the Washington Charizards, coached by my good friend SlickRickNixon. Definitely check out his channel. He posts some very high quality content, and this is his first season posting battles from the league, so I'm definitely excited to see how that goes for him. His team over here includes Heatran, Tangrowth, Goodra, Crocodile, Slowking, Jolteon, Aerodactyl, Snorlax, Hitmonchan, Togetic, and Mega Scizor. And I do want to apologize if you're hearing the sound of wind in the background. There's a little bit of a storm going on, so yeah, I'm sorry for that. I can't really get away from it, unfortunately. But yeah, looking at his team, he has some pretty big threats. Overall, his team doesn't look that scary on paper, but in the process of planning for this team, it becomes a little bit more complicated because he does have all of his bases covered, even if his individual pieces aren't that strong in general. He has all of his bases covered, which makes preparation a little bit difficult, but even so, he has some pretty powerful threats, such as Mega Scizor, Heatran, really Tangrowth can be a pretty big threat. Crocodile is a really big threat to my team, as its ability to pursue my Megalodios and its ability to hit really a lot of my team for heavy damage with Earthquake is a pretty big issue. Plus, its access to knockoff makes my Gliscor a little bit tougher to switch into it before I get my Toxic Orb up. I also would like to point out that the Jolteon is a little bit of a threat, as I don't really have a hard stop to Jolteon, especially Specs variants, as a Choice Specs Thunderbolt does a lot of damage to Clefable, even if I'm Spadef. A Choice Specs Thunderbolt does a lot of damage to Wobbuffet, but you can always just Volt Switch out, so it's not really optimal to bring Wobbuffet in this matchup for Jolteon. And of course, Choice Specs Shadow Ball does a lot of damage against my Megalodios, so it's not really, and against Jirachi for that matter. So with that said, there's no reason for him to bring a Choice Scarfed variant of Jolteon this week, and with that in mind, I'm fully expecting modest specs, as he does not need any more speed than that to be able to outspeed what he needs to outspeed on my team. So I have to prepare my team with the idea in mind that he will bring a modest Choice Specs Jolteon, which is going to be a little bit of an issue, because, like I said, I don't have hard stops to it, so I'm going to have to prepare very carefully for that. The other mons on his team aren't really super threatening to me, in my opinion. Most of them are just kind of passive walls that I shouldn't have too much difficulty taking out. Snorlax can be an issue if it sets up curses on me, but I have plenty of ways to deal with that. But yeah, so pretty soon I'm going to transition over to my team building aspect, but just looking at his team, I realized that he is very weak to fighting spam, and with that in mind, I'm going to build a team around Lucario and Breloom, and that's just going to hopefully blow through him this week. So let's go ahead and jump on over to the team builder. Alright, so here we are with the team builder, and like I said before, Lucario and Breloom look like they're going to put in a lot of work against his team, so I'm going to build around those here. And really the first thing that I noticed when comparing my team to his is that a Choice Banded Lucario 2-hit KOs at worst his entire team when I have Stealth Rock up, and with that in mind, I am absolutely running a Choice Banded Adamant Lucario in this matchup, as I can essentially spam close combat against his entire team, and if he doesn't bring a bold 252 defense Slowking, he is going to easily be 2 KO'd with no issues, his entire roster, including Tangrowth. So that's kind of awesome, but I am going to also run Bullet Punch and Extreme Speed for last-ditch effort priority options if he does have a good way of preparing for this Lucario, perhaps a Chople Berry on his Snorlax, perhaps a Chople Berry on Heatran. Those are just some things I have to keep in mind, but even so, I feel Lucario is going to be very effective in this matchup. Extreme Speed is also really nice for the Jolteon, just in case that's like a last mon situation. I have Lucario left, I can Extreme Speed the Jolteon for Adamant Banded damage, and that'll probably take it out at that point, considering I plan to have Stealth Rock up the entire game. So that's pretty nice. So that's the idea with the Lucario. I am running Justified on this just to deter the knockoff from Crocodile if I can, and hopefully that doesn't become an issue for me. Next up is the Breloom. Now this set I give a full credit to Styx for. I would not have come up with this on my own, but this is actually going to be my Volt Switch check to the Jolteon, in that, yeah, I'm going to take a lot of damage from a Choice Specs HP Ice, about 50%, but this set has the potential to actually blow back Nixon's team, in that if I can get up behind a sub and set up a bulk up, I can take hits from really the entire roster and do a lot of damage with either Drain Punch or Seed Bomb. Now, I do have enough speed investment to speed creep majority of Heatrans. I'm not going to be able to speed creep offensive like Speed Tran, but every other kind of Heatran I should be able to outspeed with this set, and Heatran is really his best answer to this outside of Tangrowth to stop me. So with that said, Breloom's going to be really a nuisance for his team, I believe, and I think that I'm going to be able to put in a lot of work with this, especially because Lucario is going to be really damaging his primary switch-ins to Breloom, in that I fully expect his primary switch into Lucario to be Tangrowth. Even if I am a Nasty Plot variant of Lucario or a Choice Specs variant of Lucario, I still feel that an Assault Vest Tangrowth would be his best switch-in to Lucario, just to scout what kind of set I am before acting appropriately. So with that in mind, I feel Lucario is going to severely damage Tangrowth, which means Breloom will have a fantastic time in this game, and I believe that that 1-2 punch is what's going to hopefully solidify me a win in Week 1 of Season 4. So this is a special defensive variant, I guess I forgot to mention that, and yeah, it's going to take hits very well from Jolteon, as well as hits from Crocodile. Once I get my Toxic Orb up, it's going to be able to take hits from Crocodile very well if he's not running Aerial Ace, which is something I'll have to scout for. Next up, I am bringing my Gliscor, as I do need a counter to Mega Scizor, and I felt that this was my best option to do so, as if he decides to bring a speedy SD Scizor, I'm going to need a good answer to it, and I'm bringing Clefable, as you can see here, coming up on the team, so I'm definitely going to need to have a foolproof answer to the Mega Scizor, as every time, or even the Heatran for that matter, as every time he goes into Mega Scizor, I'm kind of lost if I don't have something to counter it. So Gliscor is going to be that man for this matchup, and I'm just going to run a Earthquake, Swords Dance, Fire Fang, Roost set. This is definitely going to counter Mega Scizor, and that's really its primary role. It's also going to be a nice switch into the Crocodile once I get my Toxic Orb up, as even a Banded Aqua Tail only does a little bit over 50% to this set, and that's, you know, a non-factor essentially, and I'm running enough speed on this to be able to outspeed this fastest of Mega Scizors, and I believe most variants of Crocodile, so that's pretty cool. I think this is going to be a very effective Mon this matchup if he does try to make Mega Scizor and or Crocodile be his offense. Next up is my Clefable. Now, Clefable this week is not going to be doing any sweeping because he has both Heatran and Mega Scizor, which are historically the ultimate counters to Clefable, so I'm not even going to bother trying to set up a sweep in this game with Clefable, but I do think I need to bring it because it's going to be, it's going to serve two purposes. Its primary purpose is to be my lead, expecting Jolteon to be his lead because Jolteon's matchup against my team is fantastic. I see no reason why he wouldn't lead with it, and I'm going to use that against him, and I'm going to just set up my Stealth Rock on turn 1, as I believe that this team provides enough pressure to where he will not be able to get rid of a Stealth Rock, regardless of what Mons he decides to bring. His best defogger against this particular set of 6 Mons would have been Togetic, but if you look at my entire roster of 11, bringing Togetic would have been a very poor decision. So I do not see him bringing Togetic in this matchup, just because this matchup really isn't that good against all 11 of my team members, and therefore I didn't feel the need to even prepare for it here. And I feel that Clefable is going to be able to set up Stealth Rock. I can pressure Mega Scizor really hard, and I can also pressure the Hitmonchan really hard with my entire roster, so I don't see either of them being able to get rid of these rocks. So Stealth Rocks are going up turn 1, guaranteed, and then from there, he's basically just there to deter Crocodile from maybe trying to set up a Moxie sweep if it's like a Scarf Fairy, which I fully expect to be him to bring his Scarf to Crocodile in this matchup, and I can easily take hits from it. Its best option to hit me would be Iron Tail, but I can eat those up and do a lot of damage with Moonblast, or I can just Wish Protect a little bit and get into my Gliscor as a more effective counter to it if it is running Iron Tail. So I'm not terribly worried about Crocodile with the 1-2 punch of Clefable and Gliscor, but I fully expect him to bring it this week, just because his matchup is pretty good if I don't prepare for it accordingly, or properly rather. So that's the idea there, and I'm running Bold mainly to take hits from the Crocodile, and a little bit of Spadef just so I'm not totally blown back by Specs Jolteon on turn 1, but yeah, that's the idea with this, and Unaware, of course, to prevent the Moxie sweep. So then we have the next Mon up, which is the Tentacruel. The EV spread here is kind of arbitrary, actually. I just kind of threw on some EVs. Mainly, I knew I needed a lot of SpDef so that I could take hits from offensive Heatran, as at this point I really didn't have a good answer to offensive Heatran, and with that in mind, I actually strongly considered running Mirror Coat on this set, but I decided against it just because I figured HP Fire would be better in that slot, also courtesy of Sticks on this, thanks for giving me this idea, but I wanted to keep up the pressure on Mega Scizor just in case that was his defogger, and I felt it was his most likely defogger in this matchup, but HP Fire is going to deter Mega Scizor from defogging, or I'll just flat out knock it out if it's at low enough health. And Scald, Venoshock, and Toxic Spikes are my other three options of choice, or moves of choice, in that Scald is obviously the best move in the game, and Toxic Spikes is really good against his team early game if I manage to get them up, but it's also not too terrible late game if he has something left like a Snorlax that's not running immunity. If he has something like Slowking or Tangrowth that haven't gone down yet, it'll definitely help me to wear those down. Venoshock, of course, is powered up by the Toxic on the ground. So last up it was kind of a wild card for me this game, as I felt all I really needed were these first 5 Mons to do well in this matchup. So the last Mon was just kind of extra, a little bit of a bonus, and I decided to bring Mega Latios, as it is my Mega, and so that's plenty of a reason to want to bring it the first week, but it actually has a surprisingly good matchup, and this is not a matchup, a matchup that one would think would be very good at face value, because he does have both Mega Scizor and Heatran, which both are pretty common switch-ins to Mega Latios and Latios in Standard OU play. But the fact that I can prepare for these Mons beforehand makes Mega Latios that much more of a threat, and that's why I was telling everyone when we were voting on Mega Latios earlier in the preseason that this thing's going to be really, really good in the format when you can prepare for its counters, and that's exactly what I'm going to show here in this game, in that I can run Dragon Dance, Dragon Claw, Earthquake, and really handle the majority of my opponent's team, where Tangrowth becomes the only real answer to this thing, but the pressure provided by Lucario and Breloom are going to give me so much of an edge against the Tangrowth that Latios is going to be freed up to sweep, and I just run a casual Hidden Power Fire on this to prevent Mega Scizor from being an issue. And as you can see from the moveset, I am adamant with a lot of investment in Special Attack, which is really strange, but it turns out that if he's running a full defensive Mega Scizor, or at least close to it, I can OHKO after Stealth Rock with Hidden Power Fire, and that's with a stat reducing nature. Yeah, I have to give it a lot of investment, but even so, I don't need attack investment to be able to sweep through his team. So I'm able to give all this extra investment into special attack, and with that in mind, this thing is going to be really, really good in this matchup, and I expect it to really be an MVP candidate this season, just because it is so versatile and it's going to be able to prepare and counter its own counters. So yeah, I'm pretty excited to see how Mega Latios does this season. I'm a little sad that I don't have Mega Venusaur on my team this season, just because I did have so much success with it the past 2 seasons, but it's pretty cool to see a change like this, and I think it's going to be really fun to use. So yeah, that's about the team. I won't ramble on any further on this. I am feeling pretty confident about the matchup. He's a really solid player, but I do feel that I do have the matchup advantage in this game, just due to the fact that Fighting Spam plus DD Mega Latios just kind of wins. So let's go ahead and jump into the match. Alright, so here we are with the team preview, and much to my surprise, he did not bring Crocodile this game, which is going to make my life so much easier, in that the only knockoff users I have to really be looking for are Mega Scizor and Tangrowth, and the good news is I don't really think I'm going to be switching straight into Tangrowth with either my Breloom or my Gliscor, and I should be able to scout around the Mega Scizor with my Tentacruel to get my Toxic Orb up with Gliscor safely. So with that in mind, I really, really like my matchup at Team Preview, and just as mentioned before in the team building process, I am going to lead with my Clefable here, as it looks like I can guarantee free rocks immediately, and his only potential defogger is Mega Scizor, so if I keep the pressure up on that, I should have no issue in this game, as it looks like Lucario is going to be able to blow back his entire team. It looks like he developed his team such that he would have a Slowking Tangrowth core, which tells me that it's probably going to be a SpDef, or at least mostly SpDef Slowking, so I should easily be able to 2-hit KO that with a close combat, and Tangrowth after rocks are up, and it's not going to be able to take 2 bans in close combats, and Snorlax, Heatran, Jolteon, Scizor, especially before its Mega Evolved, are not going to take it well either. So let's go ahead and jump into the battle, shall we? he decides to lead off with his Jolteon, which is no surprise whatsoever, and this is a free Stealth Rock, which is fantastic, as now the rocks are there, hopefully to stay, and that damage tells me he's absolutely modest spec, so I'm glad I was able to predict that in the team building process before I even got into the game. Now, here it's going to get a little bit stally, as I need to scout what kind of Snorlax this is, and I see he's going for Body Slam, so now I need to figure out if he's going to be Choice Banded, if he's going to be Assault Vest, if he's going to be Expert Belt. There's a lot of options here. He could even be a Curse Set, and here I got a little bit fortunate in that I expected him to continue spamming Body Slam, expecting me to go into either my Breloom or my Lucario to get a Paralysis, or my Gliscor for that matter, and I'm just going to stay in and go for the Wish, and I'm pretty convinced, due to the damage from that Body Slam, he's not Choice Banded for sure. He's not going to be a Choice Scarf Snorlax, that'd be ridiculous. But here he reveals that he's not choiced and goes for the Heavy Slam, which does a good chunk of damage to my Clefable, but not enough to where I'm really that concerned about it. I just need to make sure I'm at a decent amount of health to where I can switch my Clefable into Jolteon again if I absolutely need to, if I'm predicting an HP Ice or something and Breloom might be in danger. But yeah, this is going to get a little bit stally here at the beginning. I am just kind of searching, sifting through his move options, trying to get into my Gliscor and or my Lucario safely, because as soon as I get in Lucario, I'm going to have a really fun time against his team, as I'm going to be able to just spam close combat with Rock Stuff and get to it and just kill something that will go down as soon as Lucario goes in, which is really nice. So yeah, we're going to Wish Protect a few more turns, I believe, and here I expect him to finally go for the Heavy Slam, and I go into my Gliscor, which was really risky, but I had to make a risky play at this point just to get a little bit of traction in this game, as I didn't have a 100% foolproof switch into this at this point, so here I switch back into my Clefable scouting for the Ice Punch, as I could have just roosted, I guess, the Scout Floor, but I didn't want him to go into something and get momentum, so I figured that Clefable was a good middle ground play there. Now here, I'm going to Wish Protect, I believe, 2 more times, or maybe just 1 more time here, and I'm just looking for the opening to go into my Lucario, as now that I've gone into my Gliscor, I have that option in his head as well, so now my odds are better of getting Lucario in safely on a non-Body Slam paralysis. That was the main thing I was trying to do. And here I was hoping to go for either Heavy Slam or Ice Punch. He does go for Heavy Slam, and I'm able to get my Lucario in safely, which means it is nuke time, fellas. It's time to go for that close combat, and let's look how much damage this does to Tangrowth. 49% damage. Yeah, he has a Rocky Helmet. That kind of sucks, but I'm going to be able to go for it again, and he decides to switch out into his Slowking. Let's see how much damage this does this time. Yeah, it doesn't take it very well either. It takes 48%, and it is easily in range of another close combat. So now we're going to be forced to switch out again or sack his Slowking. He goes back into his Tangrowth, which was an interesting play. I disagree with it just because he needed Slowking, or he needed Tangrowth at high health to handle my Breloom and potentially a DD Mega Latios, but he decided to go into it here, and that's too bad, because now I'm going to be able to go for another close combat, and I'm going to take out the Scizor, which was probably a high roll if he had a lot of defensive investment, but I'm not going to complain. I will take that, and down goes the Scizor, and his Slowking and Tangrowth are both very weakened, so I'm off to a very good start in this game. Now here I'm just going to go straight into my Breloom to eat up whatever he wants to go for, because I am at full health. This is going to give me a very nice opportunity to get my Toxic Orb up, and he goes into his Tangrowth here as his quote-unquote counter to my Breloom, but you'll see here soon that Breloom actually handles this Tangrowth very well. Now here I'm going to go for the Substitute, predicting him to switch into something to try to get more Regenerator Recovery, predicting my switch out, as that would just make a lot of sense, and luckily that does work out for me pretty well. And I'm going to get up the Substitute, and now just go for the Seed Bomb against the Slowking, knowing that it'll do damage to anything that comes in, and I'm not too concerned if he goes into Heatran, as that's going to be a free Drain Punch then the following turn. Now here I'm going to go straight for the Bulk Up, as I want to see what kind of set he is. He could have Aerial Ace, which is something I always am going to have to be paying close attention to this season, as Aerial Ace is a move that a lot of Pokemon have access to, and it's always going to be a nice answer to Breloom. But I'm just going to set up the Bulk Up as he goes for the Poison Jab, and now I did a calc, and I saw that if I get up to +2 defense, he's not going to be able to break my Substitute with Poison Jab, but he does appear to have a lot of special attack investment with that Hidden Power Ice. It's definitely Hidden Power Ice for the Gliscor, and he's able to do 30-some% with that. So unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to just set up in this Tangrowth space, but I am able to take it out with a Breloom, which is something that never will happen again, probably in the history of Pokemon, and that a Breloom 1v1'd a Rocky Helmet Tangrowth. So write that one down, mark it on your calendar, and we'll celebrate that again next year. But I am able to take out the Tangrowth there, and I'm off to a nice 6-4 advantage. And here I fully expect the HP Ice, as he has to go for it to make sure he takes out my Breloom. So this is a perfect opportunity to go back into my Clefable. And now, because I know he's choice specs locked into Hidden Power Ice, I'm going to pull the double, expecting him to go into his Heatran. And I'm going to go straight into my Tentacruel, as this gives me an opportunity to go for a nice clean Scald. As a burn on Jolteon would be great, a burn on the Slowking would be even better, and obviously damage on Heatran is always nice because that guarantees that's in range of my other mons. Unfortunately, I don't get the burn against the Slowking, and I decide that it's best to just go for the Toxic Spikes here, just in case. I mean, I don't really need Tentacle for anything anymore, and I wasn't going to get a 6-0 anyway in this game just because I needed free switch-ins to my sweepers, so I didn't feel too bad about going for a Toxic Spike and then a Skull to try to get that latent damage going on Slowking. Unfortunately, I don't get it yet, but I am able to just go into my Breloom and take out the Slowking here. I'll pause briefly. The crit here actually had a little bit of significance, as if it was a max HP 0 defense Slowking, I only had like an 80% chance to take it out of that range. Now, granted, that is an 80% chance, so likely I would have taken it out without the crit, but regardless, I did get a crit there, which could have impacted the differential a little bit, but regardless, he's going into his Jolteon here, and I fully expect him to go for the Volt Switch, expecting my Clefable, so now I'm going to be able to get off a nice clean Drain Punch on one of his Mons that are indeed weak to fighting moves, and it does a good chunk of damage to the Heatran, but that damage tells me that he likely has not much HP investment, if any, so he's definitely offensive, and my Breloom is only speed creeping a slower Heatran, so with that in mind, I decided that it's in my best interest to go ahead and sack off something that's not going to be useful in this game anymore, and that's going to be Gliscor, as Gliscor was only really here for Crocodile and Mega Scizor, and both of those are gone or not brought this game, and the fact that he reveals Fire Blast and it takes out my Gliscor at that range confirms that it's definitely an offensive Heatran with leftovers, which was exactly what I was expecting when building my team, so as that's the best answer to Clefable on his roster besides Mega Scizor, SD, in my face. So now I'm going to go ahead and go into my Megaladios and just go for game here, as I can go for the free Earthquake and it would take out the Heatran or the Jolteon and do a lot of damage to the Snorlax, and now his last option to beat me is to paralyze me with Body Slam, and luckily for me he is not able to do so, and I get up the Dragon Dance with Megaladios, and now I'm just going to be able to sweep the rest of his team. The only potential hindrance to that would be if he was a Quick Feet Jolteon, which would have been excellent planning on his part if he expected me to bring Toxic Spikes against him, but he did just run Volt Absorb for the potential Heliolisk, and I'm able to just clean up the rest of his team with Megaladios. So that's going to be the game. Great game, Nixon. It was a fun match, and you played well. Your team's a little bit undermanned. It needs probably a little bit of improvement, but regardless, it was a fun match. It was relatively clean. There's some good rolls in my favor, I guess, but nothing too crazy, at least. Probably should have gotten a Paralysis on my Clefable with the Body Slam earlier, but it's whatever at this point. But anyway, great game. That was a fun match, and the Toronto Raptors have advanced to 1-0 with a +4 differential to start the season, which is really nice, as all the coaches in our league are really solid this season. Every differential point is going to matter really more than it has in the past, and my division alone is really solid. I have Cheeseboy in my division again, as well as Fog from the Foghorn channel, and both of them are excellent players as well. So my division is not going to be an easy win whatsoever, not like it has been in the past either. But I'm excited for the rest of the season, but we have started it off the right way. And next week we are playing Razor and the New York Metangs in a rematch of our, I believe, Week 4 match last season. I did come out on top last season, but I did lose to him in my first season in the league. So we are currently 1-1, and I'll need to maybe swing the tiebreaker into my favor. But thanks for watching, guys. I hope you will join me again next week. Peace.